Okay, welcome back to the second session of the morning. We have two presentations, and the first one will be by Francesc Torralba on the alliance between transhumanism and global neoliberalism, the need for a new technoethics. So, Francesc.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this meeting. I would like to speak in English, and then start my presentation. My goal in this paper is to present to you the alliance between transhumanism and global neoliberalism, and the necessity of a new global technoethics. In order to develop my paper, I will present to you the four parts of my paper. First, I would like to speak about the philosophical foundations of transhumanism. Second, I want to speak about the philosophical basis of neoliberalism. Third, the relationship between transhumanism and neoliberalism. And finally, in conclusion, the basis of a new global technoethics. That I want to speak this morning at this moment. First part, what is transhumanism? Transhumanism is an international philosophical movement that advocates for the transformation of the human condition by developing sophisticated technologies. The goal of this ideology is to enhance human intellect and physiology. According to the transhumanist philosophy, human beings may be able to transform themselves into different beings with the implementation of a new biotechnologies. There are different ways to understand the transhumanism as a new utopia founded in the power of technology, that called technocracy, as a new political and social ideology, as a no-limits philosophy. The core of transhumanism is the next idea, all is possible in the future, as a new social, political, and cultural movement. The American philosopher Francis Fukuyama has written that transhumanism is the most dangerous ideology of the last century. I completely agree with these sentences. It's not only the most dangerous ideology of the last century, but also of our century. Why? We must explore its foundations and its consequences. According to the transhumanist anthropology, the human species can develop ourselves without limits. There are three typologies of human beings: the human beings, the transhuman beings, and the post-human beings. The first category is the consequence of the human reproduction. It is the human being in his natural state. The second category is a human being who has been transformed with the biotechnologies. And the third typology is a new being, absolutely different from a human condition, with new capacities and new competences. The principal focus of transhumanists in the world are in the United States, specifically in the Silicon Valley, and specifically in the Singularity University. In Great Britain, Oxford, and in Australia. There is also a social transhumanism in France. The philosopher Max More was the first to articulate the principles of transhumanism as a futuristic philosophy. He defines transhumanism as a cultural movement that affirms the possibility to improve the human condition through science and technology. The final goal is to achieve a fuller, longer, and more quality life in all senses. The purpose is to enhance the human condition in all dimensions: physical, psychological, social, and spiritual too. The goal is to implement in the body, in the most intimate structure of the nervous system, new competence and to create new capacities for the human species. The consequence of this implementation will be, in the future, a being without limits. The second part is to introduce the philosophical basis of neoliberalism. The neoliberalism is a new version of a liberalism of the 19th century. The famous thinkers, as we know, were Adam Smith and David Ricardo. The most important values of this philosophy is the personal freedom, the autonomy of the citizen. The more relevant points of neoliberalism includes, first, the role of the market, liberating free enterprise or private enterprise from any bonds imposed by the government or the state, no matter how much social damage this causes. No more price controls. Overall total freedom of movement for capital, goods and services. In French language, laissez-faire et laissez-passer. To convince us this is good for us, the neoliberalists say an unregulated market is the best way to increase economic growth, which will ultimately benefit everyone. The second basis is cutting public expenditure for social services, like education and health care. The third is deregulation, reduce government regulation for everything that could diminish profits, including protecting the environment and safety on the job. The third is privatization. Sell state-owned enterprises, goods and services to private investors. This includes banks, industries, schools, hospitals, and even fresh water. The argument of privatization is to achieve a greater efficiency. And the last basis or principle of neoliberalism is eliminating the concept of the public good or community, and replacing it with individual responsibility. Which is the alliance between transhumanism and neoliberalism? Transhumanism emerges from an opulent and neoliberal, hyper-accelerated and complex society. The argument is clear. You are free in order you design your body, your life. You decide if you want to transform your body and your soul with the implementation of the biotechnologies and be an enhanced man. The Italian expression, un uomo aumentato, verbessern Mensch, German. The Korean philosopher, Byung-Chul Han, one of the most important philosophical voices in Germany, has written about the relationship between neoliberalism and tiredness. Tiredness, or fatigue, is the result of the obsession to achieve the maximum productivity with the least possible cost. The human being exploits himself to achieve the maximum result, to obtain the maximum performance of his talent, of his body, with the least possible time. We are part of a society of excess. Ibris say, the Greek philosophy. And excess has consequently tiredness and mental and physical exhaustion. According to the neoliberalist philosophy, non-productive time is a time lost. The disconnection time is accepted, but only as a mechanism to recharge the batteries and return to the activity. The human being in the globalized neoliberal culture has become an autistic performance machine. Doping not only circulates in the world of professional and amateur sports, also in the university and certain jobs subject to the high level of pressure and stress. According to my point of view, transhumanism is a cultural product of neoliberalism. In this context, or in a context like this, transhumanism is considered a redemption as the perfect antidote to the tiredness. Companies will be interested in biotech-enhanced subjects because they will have more benefits. Should be this is the case, discrimination against those who refuse biotechnological improvement can easily be generated. They will simply be out of the market. Physical and mental tiredness, stress, depressions, existential emptiness, and the feeling of loneliness are very sensations of hyper-technological societies. Transhumanism frees us from tiredness, but not from a neoliberal system that bases its success on growth, overproduction, and hyper-consumism. In front of transhumanism, we need a new global technoethics based on respect for the inherent dignity of all human beings, inequity and social justice, in the idea of self-limitation, according to the Jacques Ellul's philosophy of technology. This new ethics must have a planetary dimension, not just European or American, and it must be the result of a great global social pact. In this context, ethics inspired by the Christian tradition must be recognized as a public interlocutor against the new technocratic feudalism, the empowerment of civil society, and the creation of a new global consciousness are decisive. A new global consciousness. We need an interdisciplinary work between ethics, economy, and technology. This dialogue is only possible if we accept the philosophical conditions of an interdisciplinary work. Which are these conditions? We must move from the monodisciplinary to the transdisciplinary across the interaction between the different sciences. We need clarity of language. We have to identify a common language between the different sciences. The closed or hermetic languages in itself makes impossible the dialogue. It is necessary also to recognize the same dignity of the disciplines or the same epistemological status. The scientism makes impossible the symmetry between the experimental sciences and the humanities. According to the scientism, the philosophical and the theological approach have not epistemological status. We need an economy centered in the respect of each human being. If we lost this ethical principle, anything is possible, anything goes. We cannot forget that the economy is not self-sufficient. It is not an independent area of human life. We must think the consequences of the economic decisions for the human beings and specifically for the vulnerable groups, that is children, young people, handicapped persons, and elderly. We need a global ethical committee of deliberation in order to assure a global progress and not a unidimensional progress of society. The integral progress of the society includes necessarily the economical dimension, but also the social, the moral, and the spiritual dimension of the human being. It is necessary to think the dynamic of economic progress and reflect about its consequences. We need a moral philosophy for a new technology. We must think the consequences of this development in different fields: social, ecological, political, educational, economical, and spiritual. Technology is not only an instrument, it's not only a thing, it is a system of life, an axiology, an artificial world. We live, we work, and we die in that world. We all are becoming techno-dependents of this sphere. There is a new religion in the Western world. The name of this new religion is technocentrism. It is a new hope for the humanity. It seems not a religion, but is a new form of secular religion. According to this new faith, all human dreams are possible. To have more memory, more intelligence, more imagination, to have a perfect body, to achieve the immortality in this life. The radical transhumanists say the death of death, the eternal life in our earth. We must separate the technology as an instrument from the technocentrism. In the technocentrism, the technical system is a new God. Against this new religion, we must underline that human freedom is authentic when it responds to the fascination of technology, with decisions that are consequences of ethical responsibility. In our world, mass media have an important role. The respect to the true is the most relevant principle, the primus inter pares. Mass media can be a source of criticism, an instrument of humanization. The trust is based in the respect of truth. We must think the moral limits of the application of the new technologies. The respect of the inherent dignity of each human being is the first principle in this new global technoethics. This ethical principle is in the core of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and also in the Christian ethics, the ethical principle of human dignity. Today, this principle is not evident for many philosophers and scientists. Our goal is not easy because we need a foundation of this principle, but not only theologically, but in a secular way. We must answer two challenges: the animalism and the transhumanism. The transhumanism is a materialistic ideology that is a new form of anthropological reductionism. According to this conception of human being, there is not soul or spiritual dimension in the constitution of person. The new global technoethics needs a different anthropological foundation. According to the Christian anthropology, human being is the unity of body and soul, unum in corpore et anima, unum. It is one being, but it has two dimensions interconnected, the material and the spiritual dimension. We cannot forget that the development of the individuals and people depend partly on the resolution of spiritual problems. The global neoliberalism is a new idolatry of money. The goal of this ideology is clear: the maximization of profits. The consequences of this ideology in the global world are the destruction of human beings, of families, specifically the corruption of the vulnerable groups, and the destruction of ecosystems. The alliance between the global neoliberalism and the transhumanism is one of the most important challenges of our time. That's my opinion. We must defend the ethical principle of equality, the inherent dignity and integrity of each human being. It is necessary a global regulation of the human enhancement, and that is only possible if we construct a global technoethics, an international bylaw. The instrumental logic of the market cannot be the only answer. We must participate actively in this construction and introduce the Christian categories in dialogue with other spiritual and philosophical perspectives. We cannot be indifferent related to this process. It is our responsibility. Thank you very much for your attention and patience.